My impressions are very positive. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to speak in front of the European Parliament. And I'm very surprised that so many people attended. And I'm very, very surprised that we had such a huge representation from the mainstream press. From what I understand, there were over 50 news media in attendance, and they haven't stopped ringing ever since the conference ended. And needless to say, it's beneficial, advantageous if you want to spread the message. And I think we've certainly done a very good job making sure that people at European level and the mainstream level understand that Bilderberg isn't a conspiracy fantasy, but rather it's very much mainstay of the mainstream press and reality. If the dollar falls, it'll bring along the entire world economy. And if that happens, needless to say, we'll be entering the new dark age, which is exactly what the people who are on the world from behind the curtain, you want to call them Bilderbergers, you want to call them private organizations, a combination of many different factors who are obviously working above government level, interested in doing and have been doing for a very, very long time, because again, we're living on a planet Earth with limited natural resources. So the idea of destroying wealth, of transferring wealth from us to them, is a very logical next step. Because if you can destroy wealth, you can destroy demand. By destroying the world economy, you can obviously save the limited natural resources, which people like Rockefeller, and Rockefeller is just a metaphor for powerful people, obviously don't want to share with us. And over the years, especially going back to the 1970s, there have been many reports, some of them private, others semi-private, others public, such as Club of Rome's Limit to Growth in 1973, which talked about zero growth, zero progress concepts we see, unfortunately, has become the mainstay of front page news in today's world. The transfer of wealth, which is what we're seeing right now, is in 1929, which wasn't really a Great Depression, it was simply a transfer of wealth, is being done on a gigantic world scale where international bankers, international organizations, private societies such as Bilderberg, they're destroying the world economy and the dollar. The whole idea of zero growth or zero progress, it's obviously a David Rockefeller concept that goes back to the Club of Rome, to the 1973 paper called the Limits to Growth, then the Council on Foreign Relations, that's the American arm or partner to the Bilderberg organization. They came up with this paper called Project 1980s, which talked about organized destruction of the world economy. Then Bilderberg, back in the 1990s, they came up with one of their secret reports where they were talking about demand destruction. How do you destroy demand? Well, you destroy demand by destroying the world economy. We're seeing it right now. And for a lot of people who read mainstream publications or get their news from CNN or Fox, they can't possibly understand why somebody would do that, especially as from their point of view, that would also hurt people like David Rockefeller. Well, they must understand. And these are the words of a very close friend of mine, who for many years was a member of Bilderberg and also a member of the World Bank, who told me that transferring wealth has nothing to do with Rockefeller living under a bridge. He said, you and I will live under a bridge. You and I will lose our wealth, our equities, our homes, our what little we've been able to save over the years, and somebody else will come along and take it for them. So that's the idea of transfer of wealth. Again, if you destroy the dollar, you destroy the world economy. If you destroy the world economy, aside from the fact that you will bring the world to the brink of nuclear war, because it's already the American government has in their plans. They've anticipated it. If that happens, then China will immediately launch a cyber attack against the United States, followed by a nuclear attack. And obviously, none of us normal, people want this. It's actually a foregone conclusion. You deindustrialize the world because, you see, back in the 1700s...
Is it the world or the West? I'm talking about the West.
It doesn't really matter. If you deindustrialize the West and China has more industry than anybody else, that certainly doesn't help people who control the world. So the idea is you try to destroy the world's wealth, you try to take the industry away, you try to bring us back to the level where we were 600 years ago, basically working the fields for some feudal lord, and that goes whether it's in the United States, in Europe, or in Asia, especially in a globalized economy as of today. So the idea is, again, circles around Gottfried Leibniz back in late 1600s. As the powerful people who control the world then, the oligarchy, they both understood that progress and development are directly proportional to population density. Meaning that the more developed we are as nations, the greater we're going to have national, personal wealth and national wealth, which means that the population base is going to explode. And people like Rockefeller, and again, it's a metaphor for just, for power and oligarchy. They don't want, right now we're at a population level of 6.7 billion people. The next plateau up is almost 10 billion people. Well, they don't want 10 billion people on the planet eating up their natural resources. So they want to reduce the world's population level. And the way you do that is you deindustrialize the world. All right? You, first of all, you bankrupt the world, which is what they're doing, and then you deindustrialize it. It has to be obvious. It's not a very difficult concept to understand. As an example, I can give you India, which a country of over 1 billion people, that's almost out of water. And the only way for them to actually get at the next level of water plateau down is to use nuclear energy, because energy flux density is much higher than any other energy in the world. So unless you can actually get to that water, you have an entire Indian nation of over 1 billion people perishing because they won't have access to water. And that's what zero growth and zero progress does. And people like Rockefeller Company and Bilderberg, obviously, they understand this very, very well. So they're working with international banks, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, European Central Bank, Federal Reserve. All of these organizations are members of the inner circle of the Bilderberg Group, and we're seeing the results of that work, which is, again, demand destruction, destruction of wealth, the destruction of the financial sector, and of course the destruction of Europe. Not of Euro, which is a good idea. I hope it's wiped out. But destruction of Europe and independent nation states in Europe. Greece, is first to go. Spain and Portugal are going to be next. Italy, then Ireland. Will they save the euro? Well, that's one of the debating points. That's actually the point number one on their agenda for the meeting, which starts in a couple of days in Sitges in Spain. What will happen to the euro? Needless to say, if you listen to Merkel and to Sarkozy, they want to save the euro because, according to them, if euro fails, then Europe will fail, and obviously that's a pack of lies. If euro fails, so that has nothing to do with European nation states failing, because we have to be, our objective has to go towards, the idea of de Gaulle, which is the fatherland of nation of the fatherlands, which is a concept of independent nation states with their own constitutions, flags, currencies, working together towards a greater common good. And that's a phrase that Bilderberg certainly does not want to hear, greater common good or general welfare. Well, unfortunately, on the one hand, it's obviously true that what we see on television, what we read in the mainstream publications such as New York Times, unfortunately, most people still believe to be the truth and the only truth, and unfortunately, they won't believe any other version of the truth. But on the other hand, because of my book, selling millions of copies around the world, and also because the actual decision-making process is not done in a general Bilderberg meeting, which includes about 125 members, but in a much smaller circle, with insiders. Whatever comes out of the general, Bilderberg meeting this week is not going to have an impact on the final decisions taken within a clique, an insider clique. But obviously, the degrees of collaboration and of working together towards, a particular Bilderberg agenda, which is, how they decide things through consensus, is a key element. And that, the mainstream press may reveal, may even publish, but again, it's not going to have any impact at all on what's decided in a small, knit group, which is the Bilderberg Inner Circle.